Domains are the peak within Jujutsu Kaisen. We've seen it all. We know that there's cursed energy attacks, punch, kicks, cursed techniques, but at the end of it all is domains. It's even said that whoever lands a domain first wins the fight. And today in this video, we're going to be ranking the top 10 domains within Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, I do want to say this, the strength of the user does not matter here. I am more so looking at how good the domain is itself. We're going to be looking at the abilities of the domain and then ranking it based off of that. And before I get into the ranking, I do want to say if you enjoy Jujutsu Kaisen content, then I would appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, as I'll be posting videos every couple days on topics that you guys recommend me and a few of my own. Now let's get into the ranking. So I do want to start off by saying we have to get out of the way some honorable mentions. Now, it wouldn't really be fair for me to put Yuta, Ryu, and Uro on this list, so those three are my honorable mentions. And the reason I say this is because we know that they have domains, but we never really got to see them used, you know. We know that they popped them against each other. They had this three-way domain clash, the cockroach came in and broke it up, but we never got to see the abilities of their domains. I bet Yuta also does have some really cool abilities in his domain as well as Uro, but we really never got to see them, so I can't really put them above anybody else's in terms of their domain abilities. And with that being said, let's get into who I have at number 10, and that is Higuruma. Now, the reason Higuruma is the last on this list is because, well, he doesn't really have a sure hit in his domain, and even without a sure hit, the byproducts of his domain are really cool, but they're not as useful. What I mean by this is Higuruma first has to land a domain, capture you in it, and then you have to be found guilty of a crime. Once you're found guilty of the crime, he then takes your cursed technique. But the problem with this is if you're just faster than Higuruma or as fast as him, then you still have your cursed energy to fight with, so you can still up your speed, up your punches, up your power with your cursed energy and still beat Higuruma down. And that is granting that he actually finds you guilty of something. So even if Higuruma lands a domain on you and then finds you guilty of something, he still can get beat down if the opponent is just faster than him. Now, in order for Higuruma's domain to really be deadly is if he finds you guilty twice, gains the death penalty reward, which is a sword that can cut through anything, and then you lose your cursed technique and your cursed energy. At that point, you'd be in a really weakened state, and then you would, you know, probably lose the fight. But even then, with no cursed technique and no cursed energy, we saw that Yuji was still able to fight him off somewhat. It's a good domain, but to put it above the other ones that I have listed just wouldn't be right. But I will say this, Higuruma really does have a cool domain. And with that being said, let's get into number 9, and that is Megumi Fushiguro's domain. And the reason for Megumi's domain being this low is because he really needs to be inside to activate his domain. But we do know once he activates it that his 10 Shadows technique gets amped up by 120%. So it is powerful in that sort of sense. But the real downfall of this domain is that he needs to be inside. He sort of needs a barrier to act on. And we see this happen when he's fighting Reggie in the auditorium. He uses the auditorium as a barrier. He needs to sort of lure you into a building in order to really trap you in his domain and then beat you up. So I will say this, the abilities within his domain, like the 10 Shadows technique, those are really good. But for the simple fact that he needs to get you inside to really beat you up with this, just makes me put him below the rest of the domains that I have listed, because all the domains after this can beat you up no matter where you are. And with that being said, in number 8, we have Dagon. Now, Dagon's domain is extremely powerful. We see when he catches Naobito, Nanami, and Maki in this, they are completely screwed. He hits them with a sure hit that is called the Death Swarm, and it is an endless stream of Shikigami that just attack the user over and over. We see that he's able to take one of Naobito's arms off, and then he's able to fight off Nanami and Maki with only 30% of the death stream. Because if you remember, Dagon was focusing 70% of his Shikigami on Naobito and 30% on Nanami and Maki, and he was still beating them up badly. And if you remember, before they got inside the domain, Dagon actually lost to Naobito, but just being inside this domain put Dagon so far above the others in power that they really could not touch him. His domain also does have a really cool look, and it looks like it's very spacious. He sort of creates his own island. Now, sadly for Dagon, he does get spliffed once Toji enters the domain. But other than that, he does have some good upsides of his domain. The sure hit Shikigami, which is the endless death swarm, and the large area of his domain, it looks like it's very spacious. So for those reasons, we have Dagon at number 8. Now at number 7, we have Jogo's, and Jogo's is only above Dagon's for one reason, and that is because not just the sure hit, But he also says that once you're enclosed in his domain, a normal sorcerer would just burn up. So Jogo's domain basically has a sure hit like Dagon's does, but he also has this byproduct of his domain where just being inside of it could very well burn you alive. And in case anybody is wondering why Gojo was able to deflect an attack back when we saw him fight Gojo, it said in the fan book that that attack from Jogo was not a part of the sure hit within the domain. Jogo was more so using that meteor as a testing measure for Gojo. So Jogo does have sure hit techniques, and he also has this burning factor within his domain. Now, other than that, there's not really anything too special about Jogo's, and these domains from 7 to 10 were really just sort of basic. But we really get into the more powerful domains coming up next, and with that being said, we have Mahito's. Now, Mahito's domain is really broken for one reason. No matter where you are in the domain, he will always touch your soul. We see when he's fighting Nanami, he sort of entraps him in this barrier, and Nanami basically says he's in Mahito's palm and that is basically over. And we even see that once Mahito sort of upgrades his domain during Shibuya, while fighting Yuji and Todo, that he's able to make his domain and his sure hit activate at the same time, so that while his domain is coming around you, you're already being transfigured. This is extremely broken, and honestly, he could go higher on this list if the people I have above him weren't so broken themselves. But if I were to give a ranking for his domain, it would definitely be in an A or an S tier for sure. And with that being said, let's get into who I have right above Mahito at number 5, and that is Hikari. Now, here's the thing with Hikari, right? Like Higuruma, he does not have a lethal sure hit, so it's not like you're dying as soon as Hikari opens his domain against you, but it's the byproducts of Hikari's domain which makes it so broken. As we all know, when Hikari opens his domain, he has this ability where he plays a game, and if he succeeds in playing the game, then he hits a jackpot. After he hits this jackpot, he gains an infinite amount of cursed energy and automatic reverse curse technique. This might be the most broken side ability of a domain that we know of. I honestly was thinking about putting Hikari at 1, 2, or 3, but the people I have 1, 2, or 3 are just too broken, but Hikari's in itself is amazing. We also know that the activation of the game within his domain is extremely fast. If you remember back in Shibuya, Mahito is able to copy Gojo's 0.2 second domain, and then it even says that Hikari's activation of the sure hit within his domain was faster than Mahito's activation. So we know that this domain has an extremely fast activation speed. So once you get hit with it, all of the information of the game runs into your head, and then you're basically forced to play the game. And then we also know that Hikari is extremely lucky, so the odds of him hitting a jackpot are extremely high. You honestly just have to end up fighting an opponent with infinite curse energy and automatic reverse curse technique because this domain is so broken. And it's also funny how this domain is broken for the byproducts. This domain is broken for the things that come after. This domain is not broken for the things that happen within it, but more so what happens after it's gone. And that is very unique to Hikari himself. And for those reasons, I have him at number 5. And now we have to get who I have at number 4, and it is Kenjaku. Now here's the thing with Kenjaku's domain. Extremely broken. He controls gravity. He has an anti-gravity technique that we know he got from Yuji's mom. And then we see when he's fighting Yuki, if she even tries to run up on him anywhere within his domain, boom, she gets hit with a gravity wall of some sort. Anybody who can control gravity in a large area instantly wins the fight. There's really nothing you can do, and we saw it happen to Yuki. You're at an extreme disadvantage because Kenjaku has something that is very rarely seen when it comes to domains, and that is that he does not have an enclosement or a outer shell of a barrier when it comes to his domain, sort of like Sukuna's. So the extension of his domain is very wide. And with this being said, he can cover a large area with his sure hit, meaning that you can't even really get close to Kenjaku in order to fight him. At any time, if you're anywhere within this wide area, you just get hit with a gravity wall. He can basically just keep you out with gravity, and we know that these attacks are extremely powerful because they take Yuki down in one hit. So for those reasons, I have Kenjaku rightfully earned at number 4. Now here we go to the top 3. And honestly, if you're woke on the series, you would know about who I have at number 3. Because even though this domain is not open for a long time, the abilities that this domain displays are out of this world. And with that being said, we have Cursed Naoya at number 3. We already know that Naoya has a technique that deals with 24 frames. If he touches you and you do not follow a predetermined set of 24 frames, then you get frozen for 1 second. That curse technique in itself is extremely broken. Now imagine this on a cellular level. His domain makes it to where you cannot move at all. Your cells are being affected by this 24 frame technique, where if you do not abide by this law and your cells do not move in this 24 frames, you get frozen and you die. We even see Naoya say this sort of wicked line. He says, in this domain, it seems the technique's target is even more precise. It can even target individual cells. If you try to move, they might get out of whack. And then that happens. When he's referring to that happening, he's talking about you bleeding out of all the holes within your body. Do you see how broken this domain is? Daido, who just previously cut Naoya in half, cannot even move against him. He is bleeding out of all the pores of his body. He even tries to swing at Naoya and just loses his arms. Do you see this? The man loses his arms when he tries to swing at Naoya. You can't move inside of Naoya's domain. If you try to move, your body just falls apart. And for those reasons, I rightfully have Naoya at number 3 on the domain ranking. And with that being said, you already know who's number 2 and 1. But in what order do I have them? And I have to tell you, in number 2, I have none other than Sukuna. Now, the thing about Sukuna's domain is that it has a radius effect of 200 meters. So from wherever he is standing, he can touch you within a 200 meter distance. We see Sukuna open up his domain when fighting Mahoraga. Now, what Sukuna's domain does is that he uses Dismantle and Cleave. So what this means is that if anything has curse energy within a 200 meter radius, Cleave affects it and cuts it. And for any inanimate objects within this radius, Dismantle cuts it. Until Malevolent Shrine is done with, it will relentlessly attack all targets within the effective range of its guaranteed hit. This means it will literally chop you up if you are even within 200 meters of him. We literally see Sukuna level a city. We see other domains like Mahito's in the earlier chapters is only about the size of maybe 20 feet around. We see when Gojo traps Jogo in the earlier chapters, his domain is like a small ball. This domain from Sukuna can level an entire city. It reaches 200 meters from around him. You cannot escape Sukuna. And it's so broken because it will relentlessly cut until everything is done, until everything is leveled. And we see this happen to Shibuya. For these reasons, I rightfully have Sukuna at number 2 on the ranking. And with that being said, we know who I have at number 1. And there's only one reason I have this man's domain at number 1, and that is Satoru Gojo. And the reason I have Satoru Gojo's domain above Sukuna's is for the fact that the moment he activates it, the moment you get touched by his domain, you cannot move. You literally cannot move. There's nothing you can do to fight back. At least in Sukuna's domain, you might have a chance to move. You might get off an anti-domain technique, even though it's not likely because he is Sukuna. But at least you have a chance to maybe move. When it comes to Gojo's domain, the second he opens his domain, you are stuck. And we see this happen when he is fighting the disaster curses. He opens up a domain that stuns everybody in the vicinity. And we even see Mahito stay stunned the entire interaction. We see Mahito come out of this stun later after Gojo has already been sealed. You see, the thing with Gojo's domain is that it makes you carry out an infinite number of activities. It overloads you with an infinite amount of information, so you never can process it all. And for those reasons, your brain freezes and you can't move. You're literally being overwhelmed, so you cannot move at all. There's nothing you can do to fight back against this domain. Your best chances is either running away or trying to open up your own domain at the same time and maybe trying to win a clash, but those are unlikely as well. So the simple fact, the only reason I have Gojo's domain at number 1 over Sukuna's is for that fact that you cannot move. Sure, Sukuna's domain is more devastating if you look at it from like a destructive area, the amount of area it covers and what it can take down like buildings. But when it comes to a 1v1 factor, something like in a fight, Gojo's domain completely incapacitates the opponent. So for that reason and that reason alone, I have Satoru Gojo's domain at number 1. Now, if you think that I should have swapped some people around, then let me know in the comments below. I am totally down to hear every single one of you out, as I honestly believe that this ranking can be put in sort of different ways, and this was just my ranking. If you think you have a better ranking or you have some recommendations of your own, let me know in the comments below. And I also want to thank you for making it to the end of the video. And if you enjoyed the video, then I would appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel, as I'll be posting videos every couple of days on different topics that you guys recommend me and a few of my own. Thank you for watching. See you next time.